when you combine eating right with things like exercise, good grooming, and good sleeping habits, you're on your way to a healthy lifestyle. So every person needs nutrients from a variety of foods, and each nutrient has a special job to do in your body. And so your body doesn't work well when it's lacking those certain things from certain foods. And so we encourage you to have variety in what you eat, and then balance your diet with exercise. So adults should get 30 minutes of exercise a day for 5 days a week. Children need 60 of exercise a day. Oops. And so the MyPlate logo, this one came out around 2015. A lot of us grew up with the food pyramid or My Pyramid. Well, it has transitioned into MyPlate to make it easier for people to visually see what the food groups are and how much we should be eating from each food group. So the MyPlate covers our 5 basic food groups, which is fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy. Now, in the past, oils have been on the past food pyramids, and oils aren't on our MyPlate anymore, but oils, healthy oils, are still vital to your body because we have several vitamins that require these healthy oils in order to be absorbed in our body. So everything you eat and drink matters, and the right mix of what you do now can help you be healthier today and in the future. So focus on variety and amount and the nutrition of the food that you choose, things like foods with less saturated fats and less trans fats, keeping an eye on our sodium and sugars. Anything you can do to make small changes helps it be easier to live a healthy lifestyle. And so MyPlate offers us tips and ideas to help create a healthier eating style that is going to be beneficial to you and your family. And so what we like to do is, first we want you to think about when you're choosing your fruits, we want you to try to focus on whole fruits. So that includes anything fresh, frozen, canned, and dried. We want you to try to focus on the whole fruit instead of choosing something like 100% fruit juice. And then your veggie, I like to try to focus on eating the rainbow. And when I say that, I'm not talking about Skittles. I'm talking about the different colors of vegetables that are out there to eat. Did you know that vegetables have 5 subgroups? They are dark green vegetables. So think about your leafy greens like your kale, your spinach, even your romaine lettuce, your broccoli, all of that dark greens. And then your red potatoes, red peppers, bell peppers, things like that, carrots. Your legumes, which are made up of beans and peas. Your starchy vegetables, think your potatoes, your corn, things like that. And then all our other vegetables, cucumbers, your normal everyday vegetables. So we want you to try, when you're choosing your vegetables, not just choose the ones that we normally eat, which celery, cucumbers, carrots. We want you to try to vary your vegetables and eat a variety of colors. So then we want to move on to our grains. So our grains are our products like breads, cereals, oatmeals. We encourage you to make half of your grains whole grains. So this comes when it's important to know how to read food labels and ingredients. So when choosing a whole grain product, you want to make sure that one of the first few ingredients listed on that food label says whole grain whatever. So let's say I'm just going to buy some whole wheat bread, and it may say 100% whole wheat on the label, but I want to flip it over and read those ingredients and make sure it says whole wheat. That way you know that it truly is a whole grain that you're getting. So in a few minutes, we're going to talk about the amount of grains that you get as servings a day based on your age and activity level. but just focusing that half of whatever you're allotted is those whole grains. And so our next one is our protein. So we as Americans are really protein heavy in our poultry, so our chicken and our beef. Those tend to be our top two choices, with pork products slowly right behind. But there are lots of different choices on proteins. One thing that I noticed when the COVID and the pandemic first hit was when you went to the grocery store, all the meat and all the chicken were gone. Everything was gone. But the seafood section still had lots of fish and shrimps in their frozen area that were great sources of protein and very low fat. And they are a good source of healthy oils as well. So we want to make sure we vary our proteins. You also want to make sure that you're getting them not only from animal sources, but some of our plant sources as well. So things like seafood, meat, poultry, eggs, and then with our plant sources, things like nuts, beans, peas, and seeds, and even soy products. So you want to make sure you choose a variety of lean proteins from both plants and animals. And then we have the dairy group. So our dairy group includes milk, yogurt, cheese, and calcium fortified soy beverages. So when you're choosing your things from your dairy group, we encourage you to try to find low fat or fat-free options, especially in our milk and our yogurt. And then lastly, we have our oils. So oils are part of a healthy eating style because they provide things like fatty acids and vitamin E for your body. But they also enhance the flavor of your food. So some oils are eaten as natural parts of the food, like I said, with your seafood and fish, but they're also found in things like nuts and olives and avocados. Other oils are refined and then added to things during the processing of that food. So things like soybean, canola, and safflower oil are usually added when the manufacturer is making that product. So you want to make sure that you choose the right amount of oil within your daily calorie needs. And we're going to talk about that. So, of course, with things that we want you to do, we also want you to try to limit things. So eating more unsaturated fat than saturated fat and trans fat can help reduce your risk of heart disease and improve your good HDL cholesterol levels. So saturated fat are the kinds of fats that are solid at room temperature and usually from animal products. So things like your butter, think about like when you make a steak, that white fat, the ribbon fat in that steak, that's considered a saturated fat because it's solid at room temperature. So we want to try to limit the amount of that we eat. Replace foods in saturated and trans fat, such as your butter, whole milk, and baked goods, with foods that are higher in unsaturated fat. So things that are found in plants and fish, such as vegetable oils, avocado oils, and in tuna fish. And then sodium. So most of us as Americans get much more sodium than we need. Even when you salt your food, people think that that's the only source of sodium that they get, but that's just not true. So any of our food that's been processed, even your salad dressings, your canned soups, food from restaurants, all of those are common sources of sodium. And so it's even added in packaged foods. Think of foods like our bacon and luncheon meat. Those are cured, so there's sodium added in there. They use it in baking. They use it as a thickening. They use it to enhance flavor, to prolong shelf life in the grocery, and to keep foods moist, surprisingly. So again, when this is another one that you need to check your labels on your packages and see how much sodium is in your product that you're purchasing. When purchasing things like canned vegetables or your canned tomatoes, anytime you can purchase an item that says no salt added, that's always the best choice, because then when you're bringing it home and preparing that food, you can add the sodium yourself. You can salt, or you can use herbs and spices to season those green beans or season the tomatoes, and you're controlling the amount of salt that's in that product. So anytime you can make a choice of any of the canned goods with no salt added, it's always the best thing for you. And then we have added sugars. So to build a healthy lifestyle, we need to make sure that we're still eating within our calorie range. And we need to make sure that we're choosing beverages and foods with less added sugars. There's no nutritional benefit from sugar. So anytime that you're getting, anytime you're drinking your sugar, for example, I do love myself a latte. I try to get sugar-free when possible on my flavored of syrups, because anytime I can change that, that's less calories. And when sugar isn't beneficial to our bodies at all, and you're adding extra sugar like the latte, caramel latte, or a Coke or a Pepsi. And I know a lot of us like the big 32-ounce ones because they're 94 cents at some of our local gas stations. You're getting 32 ounces of not only sugar, but empty calories. And that's going to be important here in just a second. And then caffeine. So we do want to keep an eye on how much caffeine that we do take in. Again, caffeine usually occurs naturally in coffee, tea, and cocoa, but a lot of times it's added to our favorite beverages, like your sodas and our energy drinks. So food and beverages with caffeine can be part of the healthy lifestyle. You just need to make sure that you're keeping a track of how much that you're taking in. So speaking of keeping track, we're going to move on to the important slide here. This gets down to the nitty-gritty. Oops, there we go. So on this chart tells you, based on your age and your sex and your activity level, how much calories is recommended for you a day. So for example, I am 46, and I'm going to go across to the activity levels. So there's 3 different activity levels that you can choose from. There's sedentary, which means that you just do your day-to-day life, and I don't do any physical activity over that amount. Then I would choose a sedentary activity. Moderately active is I get 30 to 45 minutes of exercise on top of what I already do. And remember back just a few minutes ago, I said that we need at least 5 days of physical activity at 30 minutes a day. So if I get that in, that would be moderately active. So active is when we get at least 45 to 60 minutes of physical activity a day. And so physical activity is when our heart rate gets accelerated. We're able to carry on a conversation. It may be a little bit labored, but anytime our heart gets pumping, that's what we're considering physical activity. So looking at this, I am moderately active and I am 46, so I get 2,000 calories a day. So once we find that, we're going to move on to the next chart. So the next chart shows me that at 2,000 calories a day, I get 2 cups of fruit, 2.5 cups of vegetables, 6 ounces of grain, 5.5 ounces of protein, 3 cups of dairy, and 27 grams of oils a day. So what we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on those first 5. We're going to focus on our food groups. So I'm going to show you here in just a second what that 2,000 calorie day looks like. Because I don't know about you all, but I like to visually see what it is that this all covers. So first I wanted to show you what a serving size is, because this is really important. Because a lot of times when people start eating healthier, they may not lose weight. And that may be because even though they're making half of their grains whole grains, they're varying their protein, and they're eating all their fruits and vegetables, their portion sizes still may be a little bit big than what we're used to. And so not only is what we eat is important, but how much of that we eat is just as important. So with fruit, you can have 1 cup of fruit or 100% fruit juice or half a cup of dried fruit. that would count as 1 serving of fruit. So you think 1 cup of fruit, I just want to eat an apple. Fantastic. A serving of an apple or an orange would be about the size of a baseball or sometimes the size of your fist. That's a good way to remember that. So next is vegetables. So vegetables, you can have 1 cup raw or raw leafy green vegetables. So your kale, spinach, your lettuce, things like that. So all of those equal individually 1 serving of a vegetable. So 1 cup of cooked or raw, or a glass of vegetable juice, and then 2 cups of the raw leafy greens. Moving on to grains. So here is where we get a little tricky because most of us, like let's say for lunch, you decide to have a sandwich. You have 2 pieces of bread in that sandwich, but you're only having 1 sandwich. So a lot of us think that 2 slices of bread counts as 1 serving, but that's not always the case. So when we're counting our grains, 1 slice of bread counts as 1 serving. Now, what I like to say is make sure that you read the bread package because some packages of bread, 2 slices is a serving, and usually it's the lower calorie bread that is that way. So when in doubt, always read your food label and see what your serving size is. But just for general purposes, saying you didn't have a label around, just be cautious and say 1 slice of bread counts as 1 serving. You can have 1 cup of cereal, and it says ready to eat cereal. So that would be like your Frosted Flakes or, something like the shredded wheat, something like that. You can have 1 cup, a half a cup of cooked rice, half a cup of pasta, or a half a cup of cooked cereal. So your cooked cereal, as an example, is oatmeal, something like that. But a half a cup, and this is important, especially think about like your pasta serving. I know with spaghetti, half a cup is usually just about a fist of pasta. And I know that most of us eat more than that when we fix ourselves some spaghetti. So you need to be sure that you're aware of how much you are actually eating because those calories can add up quickly. And then protein, and this is where it's going to get really sad, especially for my protein lovers. 1 ounce of protein or 1 egg or 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, 1/4 a cup of cooked beans, or 1/2 ounce of nuts or seeds. Those all count as your protein serving. Now, most of us really, really like our protein. And so if you remember on that chart where it told me how much I could have, let's go back to that. So if you look here on this chart under protein, I can only have 5.5 ounces a day. Now, for most of us, 5.5 ounces is a very, very small steak at Texas Roadhouse. And that would be 1 serving. And most of us probably would order like the 8-ounce sirloin or something like that. So for me, if I ordered 8 ounces, that would be almost 1.5 times what I'm supposed to be having for the day. So see, stuff like that, it really adds up. So dairy, you can have 1 cup of milk or 1 cup of yogurt or 1 cup of fortified soy milk, 1.5 ounces of natural cheese. So that would be things like your sharp cheddars or your cheddar cheese, your mozzarella cheese, things like that. Or 2 ounces of processed cheese. So processed cheese would be like your American cheese in the plastic wrapping. That would be a serving of processed cheese. And then empty calories, you want to make sure that you don't exceed limits greater than 10% calories from added sugar and from saturated fat. So that's just something to keep an eye on. So let's see what a day of 2,000 calories looks like. So for breakfast here on the screen, I have 1 cup of cereal, I have a cup of strawberries, and I have a glass of milk. So moving on to my lunch, I have a cheeseburger with lettuce and tomato and a cup of veggies. And I would probably serve those veggies with maybe 2 tablespoons of ranch dressing so I can have something to dip in. And that would be counted as a fat, by the way. So very good. And then I don't know about you, but at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I usually get the munchies. So I always like to plan an afternoon snack. So the example I have here on the screen is I have a serving of cheddar cheese and I have an apple. And then for dinner, I have 3 ounces of roast beef. I have macaroni and cheese, and I have a cup of green beans. And the macaroni and cheese on this plate is a cup of macaroni and cheese. And then I don't know about you, but I do like to snack in the evening around 7 o'clock or so, maybe 8. And so I have on here some air pop popcorn. So air pop popcorn, it doesn't look like it in this picture, but air pop popcorn, you can have 3 cups of air pop popcorn, and that counts as a serving. And then you can doctor the air pop popcorn however you like. Even add things like some Italian seasoning and make it in a little bit of Parmesan cheese, or you can add your own little bit of salt to it. Or there's lots of different popcorn flavorings you can purchase. But air pop popcorn is a great choice for an evening snack. So thinking about what I had for the day, let's see how I did. So here's our chart again. 2 servings of fruit. I had a cup of strawberries at breakfast, and I had my apple in the afternoon for a snack. So there's my 2 servings of fruit. All right, 2.5 cups of vegetables. So for lunch, I had a cup of raw vegetables. I had my broccoli, cauliflower, or broccoli, carrots, and celery. And then for dinner, I had a cup of green beans. So there's 2 cups. And then the half serving, the lettuce and tomato that were on my cheeseburger is my half of a serving. So I've had 2.5 servings of vegetables. So 6 servings of grains. And remember, we want to keep half of our grains whole grains. So for the 6, I had a bowl of cereal for breakfast. I had a hamburger for lunch. So remember, the 2 buns each count as 1 and 1. So I had 2 for lunch. And then for dinner, I had a cup of macaroni and cheese. Now, you can't tell it, but the elbow noodles, the elbow macaroni that I made the macaroni and cheese with were whole wheat pasta. And so there's lots of different whole wheat pastas in different shapes that you can buy, including elbow macaroni. So that, since I had a cup, was 2 servings of grains, but then it was 2 servings of whole grains. And then for the dessert or my snack at night, I had the air pop popcorn. So believe it or not, air pop popcorn counts as a whole grain because that kernel and everything is all involved in that processing. And when you pop that thing, it's all still attached. So that counts as a whole grain. And since I air popped it, I did a better choice because it wasn't cooked in the saturated fat that microwave popcorn comes in. So it's a better choice for me anyway. And with 3 cups of it, that'll be quite of a filling snack at night. Okay, so moving to protein. So protein, I did go a little bit over. I went over by 1/2 ounce. That hamburger patty was 3 ounces of protein there. And then the roast beef that I had at dinner was 3 ounces of protein there. So I did have 6 ounces of protein, and I went over by 1/2 ounce. See how quickly that thing could happen where you could slip up and things add up and you not even know. So I had 6 ounces of protein for the day. And then we move on to dairy. See, I make my 3 dairy because dairy is one that we slack a little bit on. So let's think about it. I had my glass of milk. I had 1 cup of milk with my cereal at breakfast. I had a slice of cheese on my cheeseburger. And then for my snack in the afternoon, I had some natural cheese. I had some cheddar cheese in the afternoon. So I did get my 3 servings of protein. So sometimes I get asked, well, what about if I have ice cream at the end of the night for dessert instead of cheese in the afternoon? Well, ice cream is considered a dairy food, but we like to call it a sometimes dairy. We call it a sometimes dairy because usually ice cream has a lot of sugar and a lot of fat in it. And so while it's good and it tastes delicious, that fat and sugar helps it do that way. It's still really high on things that we need to keep an eye on. Another reason why we call it a sometimes dairy is that half of a cup of an ice cream is a serving. So generally, that's 1 scoop of ice cream. How many of us only eat 1 scoop of ice cream? Not me. So that's another reason why it's called a sometimes dairy, because we usually overindulge in that as well. So moving on, we're going to show you a good way to know portion sizes. So we don't always have measuring cups and measuring spoons available. So our hands are always a good way to guesstimate how much a serving size is, especially if we're out in a restaurant or something like that. So your thumb is about 1 ounce of cheese or 1 teaspoon of peanut butter or a teaspoon of margarine, oil, or even our mayonnaise. So that's your thumb. So 2 hands cupped together is about 1 ounce of chips, pretzels, or a serving of your cereal. So think about it when you're putting it in your bowl. It's about 2 of your hands cupped together. All right, so your palm. So if you look on the slide, you'll see there's a square around just the palm part of my hand. So your palm, that's about 3 ounces of meat. So when you're looking for that hamburger or the roast beef that I had, 3 ounces of meat, it's about right here. Not a very big burger, is it? Think about a correct portion size hamburger would be like the hamburger you get in a Happy Meal at most of our fast food restaurants. That small burger, that really is your serving size for the hamburger. So that's something to think about. So the palm of your hand is about 3 ounces of meat. Your whole hand outstretched is about 1 cup of cooked pasta. Now remember, that would count as 2 servings of grains. So 1 hand. And then if you just held your 1 hand out as in a cup, that would be about 1 ounce of nuts. So that's another thing that even though it counts as a protein, we do need to keep an eye on how many of those nuts that you're grabbing out of that jar. Because I know that we just scoop and then we usually just pop the nuts in our mouth or we just eat a little bit, but then we usually go back and get another scoop. So now you're having a couple extra servings and the fat and calories and sodium on those really can add up. So I want to point out that all the information we've talked about today can be found at choosemyplate.gov. You can go there and enter in your gender, your age, and activity level, and it'll give you the same information that I just went over with you. I've also left some MyPlate information here at the library, or you can go to, you can give me a call at the Cooperative Extension Office. I've put my phone number here on the screen, along with my email address, which is Kelly, Kelly, .bland, BLAND, at uky.edu. I also have a Facebook page. It's Davis County NEP, and I post on there several times a day. I share recipes, I share articles, I share videos. So it'd be a good place for you to like and share and just get some ideas every day on healthy living. I wanted to go back up and point out this planeatmove.com, that website is ran from UK's Nutrition Education Department. And so there are lots of great ideas on the Plan Eat Move as well. And if you choose to go there, it will also has a Eating Healthy tab. And when you go there, it will also take you to the myplate.gov. So if anyone has any questions, I know we talked about a lot of information in a short amount of time. Please, put it in the chat box and Lisa will get with me and let me know. If not, if you think of something later, feel free to call me at the Cooperative Extension Office. My number there is 270-685-8480. And I'd be more than happy to answer anything. I'd be more than happy to get you some information. If you or your organization might be interested in some classes for the community, please reach out and let me know. I'm more than happy to schedule those as well. So I appreciate your time. I'll put my information back up on the screen if you have any questions or anything. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Kelly. That, like you said, a lot of good information packed in there.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually have a question. So, as I was listening, our sense of a serving, especially in America, is skewed to the larger size. When trying to follow the MyPlate formula, would you suggest starting all at once and trying to follow each category as strictly as possible, or would you suggest like easing into it? What are your suggestions there?
I always encourage you to ease into it. No need to just jump right in and get all wet and then start drowning in all the information. I just think that you should just find one thing and just focus on that one thing. So let's say I know that I am somebody that really lacks in my vegetables. So this week, maybe I make it my goal to make sure that every day I get at least 2 servings of vegetables a day. Even though I know I need 2.5, I'm just going to make sure I get my 2 in. And then if I have 3 out of 7 days that were good days and I got them in, that's fantastic. So next week, I'm going to aim for 4 days of getting my vegetables in. Always, anytime you can choose baby steps and make it a habit and get it into your life and then add another thing into it, it's more likely to stick with you. And so just think of the 5 food groups. My suggestion would be just think of our 5 food groups. What is an area that you're lacking on personally? And then maybe just start there. And you don't have to start with, I'm going to eat everything every day. No. Let's say that maybe you don't eat whole grains. Maybe any thought of a whole wheat sandwich or whole grains pasta, maybe that doesn't sound good to you. And you're like me and you're somebody that can eat 6 servings of whole grains a day. All I ask is that you try to make one choice whole grain. A bowl of oatmeal. Oatmeal is considered whole grain. A bowl of popcorn, air pop if possible, but a bowl of popcorn is considered a whole grain. So those are a couple whole grains that people are usually okay with eating. But if you can even try like brown rice instead of white rice, or a whole wheat flour tortilla instead of a regular tortilla, and just try one meal, one whole grain, then you're on your way to making some changes. And maybe you might find out that something you didn't like before, maybe your palate has changed a little bit. It's tolerable and it's something that you can do. So anytime you can make small changes, better for you at keeping with it than if you try to do everything at once and get really overwhelmed.
Thank you, Kelly. I was hoping that would be your answer. Well, I appreciate you being here with us today and sharing all this knowledge. And thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.